All right, welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It is Brock Appel's Wealth, the 23rd. My name is Adam, of course. And one of these days I'm just going to throw in, my name is Ryan. Just like some random name. See if you guys pick it up. Today I'm going to give you my review of The Siege of Mount Nevermind by Fergus Ryan. I'd like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga members and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting a link in the description below. You can even pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link. I am clearly... Ooh, I don't have my fill light. Let me get my fill light. It's a little bit better. I am clearly not in my office because I got family over and friends over. And it's actually kind of loud out there, so I hope it doesn't distract from this review, which is not going to be a good one. Because this is not a good one. But this is just my perspective. Yours may differ. And if it does, or if you agree, let me know your thoughts. If you're joining live at any point in this, put your thoughts in the live chat. And if you're watching this after the fact, throw your thoughts in the comments section, and we will have a little bit of a back and forth. Having some fun, you know. I like to hear what people think. That's why I do this stuff. That and... apparently I have nothing else going on in life, so I do reviews online. All right, so this Siege of Mount Nevermind, this is the final book in the Chaos War series. I should put that out there. And it is by far the worst of them. It takes everything we know about gnomes and throws it out the window, and instead makes it almost like it was a story out of Thorbarden. Because the gnomes are actively like working against each other in some cases. And like not all the gnomes are like gnomes in Dragonlance. Some of them are very much like Derigar dwarves and just in their mannerisms, their choices, their behaviors. They don't like speak really quick or anything like that. I mean, the whole thing is very, very odd. There's a few like throw-ins of like the gnomish song and stuff to try to make a connection, but it really, really, really feels disconnected. And if you look at any reviews online about this book, you're going to see that same commentary paralleled. It's just, they don't feel like the gnomes that we've been, led to know after 40 plus years of storytelling, which means that the story itself feels a little discordant when it really shouldn't. I mean, at this point, it should be a very cut and dry, clear, concise. This is what happens when Knights of Tahkisis try to take over Mount Nevermind, and then chaos comes, and that's really what the book is about. But you have a lot of other stuff thrown in. Not all of it's bad. There's this really great moment where a Knight of Tahkisis who is trying to maintain power is facing off verbally with basically a judge, a gnome judge. And they're like, the judge is like, you're less than worthy to be in charge here. You're basically like a little fuzzy thing. And he turns around and he pantses himself, like showing his ass. And it freaks people out so much that they fall off the level of the Mount Nevermind that they're on. And they like fall down to different levels because this guy just mooned everyone. And in the moment, it was so absurd that I actually did laugh out loud because it was a very funny moment. But that was like the most emotional reaction I had reading this entire novel, which isn't really a good thing. When I read these novels, especially during the set in the Chaos War, the reason why I wanted to read these so badly was because I want the danger, the thrill, the fact that these Knights of Tahkisis, this evil army that has never seen its like in Ansalon ever, has come across the entire face of Krynn and just swept through every obstacle in their way, decimated everyone. And so there's that immense threat. And then at the same time, chaos is unleashed, and chaos is just spreading all throughout Krynn, destroying everything. And so there's genuine threats happening. And you don't really feel that in this novel at all. It's so isolated to Mount Nevermind, and it doesn't really feel like chaos is a part of the story at all. So it starts with these two different groups. You have a gnome who knows that this military force is coming over to take over Mount Nevermind and doesn't want to lose his sense of power and authority. And so he makes a deal with the Knights of Tahkisis, telling them that, where they can come in and how they can take over. And the Knights of Tahkisis instantly take over Mount Nevermind, like instantly. And while that all is happening, there's this thing called a paradise machine. Seriously, it never really explains what it was intended to do or when it was originally built or really anything about it. But it throws in these notes about how the paradise machine has like elements of chaos in it. And so since the gray gem passed by Mount Nevermind, and then the gnomes who were chasing it ended up stopping here. That's how Mount Nevermind became a thing. And then passed on. And so there's like some dormant chaos energy here, which once chaos was released from the gray gem, apparently like amplified or something like that. And that's why this paradise machine started doing what it does. It's sort of like the linchpin of this entire story, even though it's like fully in the background. So the story focuses on this strange sort of back and forth between this bone acolyte of Tahkisis who is trying to maintain control here, who comes from very humble beginnings, very close, like on this island, St. Christ Island, and is kind of ashamed of his background. And he's been lured into the Knights of Tahkisis by Tahkisis herself. She's like whispering, even before the organization was formed, she's been sort of in this character's ear the whole time. And that's about as far as it goes, because it gets to a point where she's like, I have to leave now, like after the Chaos War. And he's like, no, don't leave me. And she's like, I need you to, people believe that you have been handed things by me and not really tested, and you haven't really earned them. So now I need you to earn your stay and your control of this land. And then ultimately she just says, you know what? Actually, just take you and a handful of people and GTFO. Like, get out of Mount Nevermind, because chaos is going to destroy this island, this volcano, which doesn't actually happen, which is a little weird too. So she tells him at the very end of the story to escape Mount Nevermind with only a handful of people. And so he does that. Then she leaves because, of course, the Chaos War is over. And then the mountain doesn't ever explode or anything. Like, nothing happens. And I could have swore at some point this mountain exploded in my memory. And I thought it might have been the dragon overlords that it ended up blowing up. And now that I think about it, I think that's exactly why it blew up. They were trying to defend themselves against a dragon overlord, and that's why it exploded. But for some reason, when I was reading it, I thought it was this moment, like the Knights of Tahkisis and stuff. Any case, it was a misunderstanding. So that didn't happen. So I was just like, well, what the hell why did she tell them to leave if nothing happened? Like, I don't know, that it seemed very, very strange to me. So anyway, we'll get a little bit more nutsiness here in a second. So while this gnome judge is trying to maintain control, the Knights of Tahkisis have taken over all of Mount Nevermind, and everything, because of this paradise machine, starts working perfectly. All of the inventions are working perfectly, and it's actually driving the gnomes crazy because they don't have anything to repair or fix, which, if you think about the gnomes' like ecology or behavior or lifestyle, it's all predicated around fixing and repairing and refixing and re-repairing their inventions. They don't ever finish them so that they can continue their life quest. But once everything is working perfectly, they're completely miserable because they have nothing to do. Their life quests are done, and they're just sitting around going, well, shit, now what? Which was arguably the most interesting moment of the entire book, was realizing that Mount Nevermind could be functioning perfectly and not need any assistance or anything, and that would actually drive people crazy. Ironically, the only way to drive the gnomes crazy is to have things work, while by not having their inventions work drives everyone else crazy. So I thought that was an interesting little play. So let's talk about this paradise thing. Hey, Lauren, I know you. She's literally in the other room right now. I just heard her laugh. Okay, so she now I'm all thrown off. Thanks. I appreciate that. I hear my son laughing too. All right, so basically the Paradise Machine. Hey, Vinicius. I almost didn't pronounce that right. I may not have still. The Paradise Machine is basically, it runs off of like this liquid, this chaos liquid, which I think is supposed to be like oil, but it's supposed to be, because it's infused with chaos, it's like self-repairing the machine when the machine like breaks down, and it starts to like make a bunch of other machines, which is why all the other machines work in Mount Nevermind. So it makes everything work together very, very strangely. And then ultimately, everyone just is seeing this thing working, and they don't really understand why it's working. And again, there's an active war outside of this mountain, outside of this volcano. Like, chaos is taking over the entire planet, and everything in this one little volcano is just working perfectly, and no one is really concerned about it at all. The Knights of Tahkisis, who are holding this area, they literally took over just by walking in, and everyone just accepted it. There's no stakes at all here. It's just like the worst storytelling ever. Ultimately, the Paradise Machine starts triggering chaos, like inviting chaos into it is the interpretation I got. There's this really weird side story in this of one of the gnomes' girlfriends who worked on the Paradise Machine. She was creating a sort of automaton of herself that could never actually work, and she was murdered by the automaton after the Paradise Machine started working, and it fixed everything. So it fixed this automaton that she was making of herself, ended up killing her, and it was like this weird out of nowhere like B plot that literally never went anywhere in the story. It was just included to showcase how effed up this Paradise Machine was, and these inventions ultimately are. It's very strange. Yeah, truly terrifying. The Goof, how you doing, man? And so at the very end, chaos finally starts to like seep into Mount Nevermind, and the magma of this dormant volcano starts to grow. And you're thinking in your head when you're reading it, oh, it's going to explode. It's a dormant volcano, so the volcano is going to explode. But no, what ultimately happens is a bunch of the gnomes just wander outside. And then this fire dragon, which we see in other stories in the Chaos War series, the fire dragon comes out, and all it wants is treasure. And so they like launch treasure in different areas, and the dragon just goes after it. If I'm remembering right, it makes no sense, because why would these fire dragons give a damn about treasure? That's not the point of them. They're created by chaos to destroy. They're not like regular dragons who want to have their hoard in their little home, cavern, and they just like sleep on top of it. That's not what they do. The whole point of them is to come out and murder and tear everyone to pieces. And that's the only element of chaos that we actually get, other than the Paradise Machine working in this story, which is supposed to be about the Chaos War. It's bananas. So the whole book is completely crazy, and it's more of like a political story between the Knights of Tahkisis and the gnomes than it is about chaos at all. And I guess maybe it's fitting that this is the last book in the Chaos War series, because they were clearly losing steam in how to tell interesting stories in each of these kingdoms around, right? So we covered the dwarves of Thorbarden. We covered the elves of Quillenstein / a little Sylvanesty. We covered the Minotaurs. We covered, where else did we cover? I can't remember. But we covered a bunch of the other places. In Dragons of Summer Flame, we covered Solamnia and Palanthus and Calaman. And so I think ultimately what this series is meant to do was explain, because the Dragons of Summer Flame was supposed to be a trilogy, and then TSR / Wizard of the Coast put a kibosh on that trilogy and said just make one book, and then they decided to flesh out everything that would have been in the others with this Chaos War series. The Irida. were the Irida in one of the chaos? I mean, yeah, the Dragon Summer Flame covered the Irida part of it, yeah. And in any case, the whole point of this series is to showcase chaos and how it decimated the world, and how the Knights of Tahkisis, who were the occupying force, were actually also working in tandem with the people. But that didn't happen in this story. They pretty much just popped smoke in their own, and the gnomes popped smoke on their own, and then the dragon came out and then just left in like the last chapter. And that was it. And then the gnome who invited the Knights of Tahkisis in was just like, all right, well, now we have to go back into Mount Nevermind, and we're going to have to repair all the damage that was done. Literally the end. And that was it. And they're like, yeah, now we can be happy again because we get to work again. The most pointless damn story I've ever read in my entire life. And first of all, it didn't feel like gnomes. It didn't feel like the Chaos War. The Knights of Tahkisis, the most we're getting is this weird obsessive whisper that this Thorn Knight is getting from Tahkisis, that ultimately she just abandons his ass, which we know why, of course. But he gets all butthurt about it, and he like flees Mount Nevermind on her suggestion before this dragon wakes up or is created or sent here or whatever. And I feel like it's completely a waste of my time to explain it to you, other than to warn you that you should not bother reading this book at all. Like ever. It's not enjoyable. It's frustrating to listen to because it's not relatable in the Dragonlance parlance of like world building. It's just really out there. And as the end of a series, you would like to think it would go out with a bang, but I'm almost thinking they didn't do any more because they just started petering out. Like it just got worse and worse and worse, and everyone was just like, all right, let's move on. We got other stories to try to tell than this era. I feel like we've tied a bow on what the Chaos War was like. We've got 2 game modules in addition to all the books. Let's just move on with the 5th Age at this point. And they literally did. So it was pointless fluff to fill pages. The goof, I 100% think that's exactly it. It was very, very aggravating. And the author, a lot of people in a lot of the different review sites are really hammering him hard because it's not written well. It doesn't really relate totally to Dragonlance. And I don't know if he's ever written anything else in Dragonlance. I've just never heard of his name before this one. But I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy his writing style. I just, you try out new authors. Sometimes they don't work and you move on. Okay, that's what this was. They tried a new author and you got to move on. I'm hoping Fergus Ryan does some better work later on. And this is like one of his early oops works, like, well, I tried, but it's clearly it didn't work out. I wish him the best of luck in whatever he's doing. Just maybe don't come play in this sandbox is all, unless you do a whole bunch of reading first. But it was an effort. I'll give you an E for effort because not good. You do remember what they had a dipping bird machine that was oiled with the chaos oil and got perpetual motion. Yeah, I don't know, man. That was the Paradise machine, I think. It was the dipping bird machine. The whole thing is, I just thought was very, very strange. It didn't make sense to me, like the logic leap you have to go that chaos is somehow controlling this machine, and instead of it causing chaos, it caused order. That makes no sense. Especially when chaos at this literal moment is supposed to be destroying the world. So it just happens to fix this one thing and make it work perfectly? It belies logic, and it's gnomes, so it's not supposed to be logical, and maybe that's why he did it this way. But that's just a little bit too much for me. I can't get on board with it. It was just garbage, hot garbage. All right. So if you like gnomes, you're probably not going to want to read this because it doesn't really feel like gnomes. If you like the Chaos War stories, you're probably not going to like this because it's not really a Chaos War story. If you like the Knights of Tahkisis, you're probably not going to like this because it's really about one bone acolyte and his relationship with Tahkisis, and it's not a very interesting relationship. So ultimately, it's in my opinion a complete and total failure of a novel, and it just made me never want to revisit it again, which is frustrating because I paid for it. And I hate never revisiting books that I've paid for. That's why you buy them, because you want to read them more than once. In any case, I think you can skip this book and feel good about yourself, no matter what. If you do want to get into it and you do want to read it yourself, or you have read it, please let me know what you thought. And if you think that it does make sense, or the story beats, maybe I'm missing story beats and that's why I don't like it, please explain it to me, because I tried and it did not resonate at all with me. It was really bananas, and not in a cool gnome way. So that is it for my review of The Siege of Mount Nevermind by Fergus Ryan. What did you think of the Paradise Machine? Did you enjoy the various portrayals of the gnomes? How each of them are dramatically different and not really gnome? And finally, were the Knights of Tahkisis truly just feckless in this story? Feel free to email me at info@dealsaga.com or leave a comment below. I'd like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. This all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. And of course, I also want to take a second to let you know about my new project. I've been developing a system-agnostic dark fantasy campaign setting called Dire Lands. You can learn more about it on my Evil Live Play YouTube channel. We got an actual play. We're at part 3 in 2 weeks, so look forward to that. The link is in the description below. You're hardcore about reading them as a kid, and you had to reach a bunch like this bad writing, but the ones were good were very good. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, The Goof. When Dragonlance is good, it hits hard. And when it's bad, it makes you question your life choices. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you'll continue joining me in the celebration, even when we have stinkers like this. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slán Javar.